so this was my most requested noodle dish from my mum when I was little. I used to love the chewy noodles and then that chickeny, thick, glossy sauce. Oh, so good. But we're gonna start off with the condiments part first. We wanna make a chili vinegar. Super simple. I just want a nice mild red chili, just some thin slices. Now pop those into a little jar or a little bowl. And then just plain old white distilled vinegar goes on top. This is a condiment that you will see in like every noodle shop in Thailand. It's just what we eat with noodles. Very easy to make, and you can keep it in your fridge as well. Okay, so now let's talk about the vegetable that we use for this dish. So here in Thailand, we would use what's called kana. It's also known as gailan or Chinese broccoli. Basically, any kind of green will do, even a pak choy or a bok choy. With kana or the Chinese gailan or Chinese broccoli though, I find the stem part, this part here, it's kind of a bit tough. So I like to peel the outside and then just chop the end off. And then the way to get the very best out of this vegetable when you're cooking it is to slice it in a particular way. I'm gonna slice it on the diagonal, and that lets the vegetable cook really quickly when we're stir frying. Often find that the difference between a really amazing stir fry and a not so good one, it's all in the slicing. Okay, so the noodles for this dish, very important part. Usually or traditionally you would use these thick, fresh rice noodles. Now this is the kind of thing that you can find at your Asian grocer, or I've also got a little video on my YouTube channel that shows you how to make them from scratch at home. Okay, now time to do the work in the wok. Now that I can see there's smoking, I'm gonna add a little bit of oil, not too much here, and then in go my noodles. Spread them out straight away. And then for a little bit of extra color, I'm gonna add some sweet dark soy sauce as well. Just wanna let these sit for a little bit. I really want some nice, deep, dark browny edges on each of these noodles. Okay, tossing around. And then again, let them set. Tossing around again. This is really the key here, guys. I want you to feel like you're almost just about on the edge of burning those noodles. That's gonna give you the perfect flavor. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna get these straight out onto my serving plate. Okay, so now time to do that glossy chicken gravy. Now I'm using chicken thigh for this one. I want to add a little bit of flavor to this before it goes into the wok. So I want some oyster sauce, a little bit of white pepper. And so the flavors for this dish are really simple. It should be all about the chariness that we're gonna get on the noodles and that flavor of the wok, and then also that little bit of pepper and a little bit of saltiness. So that's the main sort of thing that we're going for here. Just need some heat under my wok and some oil. In goes the chicken. Now, as when I'm stir frying any protein, it gets spread out straight away into the wok, so I can try and get some beautiful color and a really nice kind of sear on the meat rather than the meat clumping together and stewing. Now that I can see all that nice color on my chicken, I'm gonna add my garlic. And then the green vegetables. Now in goes the chicken stock. And then some seasoning. So I've got some fish sauce, a little bit of sugar. And then because, as I said before, that pepper flavor should really come through, I've got some white pepper here as well. You could also use black pepper. Now I want all of these guys to get acquainted in here. I want those greens to just wilt a little bit. So just a minute or so of some simmering. Okay, this is looking good. Now I'm gonna add in some corn flour that I've just mixed with a little bit of water as well. And we just simmer this for another minute or so till everything becomes thick and glossy. It's smelling so good. I'm just gonna check for some seasoning here. so comforting. Chickeny, just a little bit of garlic flavor, and that pepper, amazing. Doesn't need a single thing. Now this gets spooned out all over the top of your beautifully charry noodles. This is one of those dishes where there should be ample sauce, and I mean lots of sauce. Pour a little bit more on top. And so with a lot of Thai noodle dishes, it's all about the condiments at the end, guys. So we need a little bit of chili powder. And then I need some of that vinegar chili that we made earlier. And then let's see how we've gone. It's so magic. I really can't wait for you guys to try this one. Amazing. Okay guys, I love this dish so much because larb is one of my favorite Thai salads. One, because it's super spicy, has loads of fresh herbs, and it's so tangy and full of flavor. And the other reason I love it so much is because there are noodles. So it's like my two favorite things, noodles and larb spicy salad. What could be better? All right, let's start with the noodles first. So we're gonna use a glass noodle, which in Thailand we call wun sen. So this is what it looks like. It's also called cellophane noodles, bean thread noodles, mung bean, vermicelli, bean thread vermicelli. Oh my God, there's so many different names for this noodle, but that's what you're looking for. And the best way to deal with these guys is some hot water. If you cook them in boiling water like pasta, they turn to mush. So just hot water and pour that on. Just sort of spread them out a little, and you want to let them soak for about 10 minutes until they're just tender. So in the meantime, let's talk about rice. And we need rice for this dish because the secret ingredient to any good Thai larb salad is roasted glutinous rice. So you're looking for sticky rice or glutinous rice. Looks just like this, and we're gonna pop it into our frying pan. I want you to toast these guys, keep them moving so they get an even color, and you'll be able to smell when they're ready. I'm starting to get that aroma now. What it is like a nutty, popcorn, smoky kind of aroma. And when we grind this up and add this to our salad, that's the beautiful flavor that it adds. Now look at that color, that's just perfect. I want to get that into my mortar and then just grind that to a fine powder. So you can do this with regular jasmine or long grain rice as well. I do find it can be a little bit firmer and a bit more bitey than the sticky rice. So try and find that one first. Now let's have a look at our noodles, and the only way to test is to pick one up and try it. Beautifully tender and not sticky or gluggy. That's exactly what we want. Shake most of that water off and into a bowl. So the next thing we want to do is the spicy salad dressing. Now we're going to start off with some fish sauce and some palm sugar. So this is what palm sugar will usually look like. It comes in these very firm cakes. And then what you need to do is use your knife to shave the sugar, and that will allow it to disintegrate and dissolve more easily into that dressing. Next up is the chili powder. So this is a Thai chili powder. It's sort of like a little flaky, and it has seeds in there as well as the powder. What I would suggest is that if you can't get a Thai brand of chili powder, just look for a chili powder that has quite a bit of heat, but also has a little bit of those seeds and a bit of a flaky texture. This salad is traditionally really hot. I mean, the cafe that serves it down the road from my studio here in Bangkok makes it so hot, but it's so good. Obviously, you can tone the chilies down a little if you prefer. And to that, I'm going to add our roasted rice powder. And then the other thing I want is some lime juice. It's tasting so good. Salty, tangy, spicy. Love it. So this will get us started with the salad dressing. I always find with this kind of Thai salad, you do need to taste it and adjust the seasoning at the end, but this is a solid start. Now the other thing I want to do is slice up some shallots, and these are some little red, small Asian shallots. You could use French eschalots as well. They're a bit bigger, so use less of those. Actually, even some red onion would be fine too. Okay, so now we can get started on our pork. And I'm just gonna get this straight into a dry frying pan. Traditionally, the meat for this type of salad in Thailand is often boiled in a little bit of water, but I find with pork mince, it's got enough kind of juiciness that it can handle just going into a pan on its own, and it will cook in its own little porky juices. So I can see we've got the juice coming out now. The pork looks cooked. You don't want to brown the meat for this. You're really after it to just kind of poach. Now that's looking good. I'm going to put this straight into our noodles. Now I try and leave behind most of that liquid because I don't want to sog out my salad. Now while that pork is still warm, I want to add in my shallots. And this is just a thing that I like to do with my larb salads. I add a little bit of the dressing first, and I mix the warm pork and the warm shallots and that little bit of dressing together so that the shallots kind of lose that harsh onion flavor. Now, one of the most important things for any Thai salad is the herbs. And I'm gonna use a very traditional herb for this type of salad. It's called sawtooth coriander, and it looks like this, very different to regular coriander. You can see the leaves have that sawtooth edge, hence the name, sawtooth coriander. This will give you the most authentic flavor, I guess. It has a coriander flavor, but it's kind of stronger, a bit more medicinal. If you can't get a hold of this, and I know a lot of you won't be able to, you can use regular coriander. And for those of you who don't like coriander, you can just leave it out. And now I want some spring onion as well. And then the most important herb, which is the reason why I said if you're not a coriander lover, you can leave it out. The most important herb is mint. So you want lots of mint. Now pour over your dressing. Oh, this is my favorite part, where the noodles get stained a beautiful chili red and I can smell all those fresh herbs. Okay, now I want to test for my final seasoning here. Honestly, Thai salads, they're so magical. There is so much flavor there. It's just a huge burst of spicy and tangy and fresh and all the good things. I am going to add a little bit more chili though, because I'm me. And then I want a little bit more lime juice as well. Okay, now just pile this up onto a plate. And then to serve here in Thailand, we always have some cooling ingredients nearby to nibble on in between mouthfuls of spicy salad. So I've got some raw cabbage here, and then a few stems of spring onion. And then these are snake beans, which we often serve raw for that cooling effect. So there you go, guys. If you love spicy things, if you love noodles, if you love Thai salads, any of those things, then you are gonna wanna make this. And I am going to wanna eat it. So good. I always get so excited about noodles. So the real secret here, guys, is in the noodle soup broth. So we want to start off with a flavor paste that's going to make our soup extra special. So I'm going to start off with some coriander roots. Now this part of the coriander has heaps of flavor. Even if you don't love coriander, this is going to be like a real background flavor and just give some real sort of depth and umami to our soup. All right, now I also want some garlic, and then a good few spoons of some black peppercorns. And I just want to make a rough paste here. Now you could also do this in a blender, but if you're doing it that way, just use ground black pepper, because sometimes you won't get the whole peppercorns all ground up nice and fine. Okay, so this is the texture we're looking for. And already the smell of this paste is making me very hungry. So to start off with, we just need a little bit of oil so we can fry off our paste and get all the aromas and flavors going. And now I'm adding in my beef. I'm using chuck steak here, and that's got a little bit of fat and connective tissue running through it. So it means that we're gonna get a really soft, tender piece of beef at the end of our slow cooking here. Okay, so now that we've got some good color on that beef and I can smell that paste as well, I'm gonna add in some more flavor. We want some star anise on a cinnamon stick, some soy sauce, some dark soy sauce for some beautiful color, and some chicken or beef stock. Now bring that up to a gentle simmer, pop the lid on, and you want to let that bubble away and do its work for about an hour and a half. Now while that beef is simmering, you might just want to take a ladle and skim off any of the sort of bits and pieces that sort of rise up to the top there. Now I can see that that beef is beautifully tender and the smell of that broth is so amazing. Oh, I've been hungry for the last 90 minutes smelling that simmering away. Now what we want to do is find those whole spices that we put in there and just fish those out. And then I like to scoop out my beef pieces and just run a knife through them so they've got this really nice sort of pulled beef texture. That's the perfect texture, nice and soft and tender. Now I'll just set that meaty goodness aside for later. So we are doing this Thai street food style, so I'm going to use some Asian beef balls. And then I just want some green vegetable as well. So I'm going to slice these into nice little pieces and I'll put that into the soup just to warm through. I like those vegetables to stay a little crunchy, so I just put them in at the end. Now I'm using what we call sen lek in Thai, and that is a thin rice noodle. And the best way to deal with these is to soak them in some just room temperature water for about 10 or 15 minutes until they're pliable and a little soft. And that way you can pull out the handful that you need, so about a handful per person. And then we just quickly blanch that in some boiling water. I find that doing the noodles this way keeps them from all clumping up and getting all sticky. And now the all-important taste test. I'm going to check my broth for some last-minute seasoning. That's such a deep, savory flavor. That's really, really quite amazing that we've achieved that in only 90 minutes. Now I'm just going to add a little bit more fish sauce. So if you were eating this street side or in a restaurant in Thailand, you would have fish sauce and different seasonings at the table, but when I'm cooking this at home for family, I like to do the seasoning myself in the pot. That way I make sure everyone gets just the right balance of flavor. Okay, so these noodles are ready and I'll just portion them out into my bowls. And now you want to scoop out some of those beef balls and those Asian vegetables, put that onto your bowl. And then I want a good handful of some of that braised beef. And now that beautiful broth. Now the final finishing touches, just a little bit of bean shoots on the top and some Thai basil as well. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed that one. If you did, why not hit the like button? And even better, I would love so much if you would subscribe and even hit that little bell button so you get notified every time I release a new delicious video. Thanks guys.